So you'll want to get a second citizenship and enjoy all the benefits and protections that come with being a dual citizen. Perhaps you want one of the best second citizenships. Perhaps you don't want to wait a long time, or both. And perhaps the idea of making a donation to some of these citizenship by investment programs you've seen doesn't appeal to you, nor does the idea of scavenging through real estate listings or potential business investments. And so you want to find a way to get a second citizenship by investing some money, but not taking on as much risk. Well, in this video, I'm going to share a couple of different strategies that you can use to avoid donations and avoid the risk of the markets. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to learn how Nomad Capitalist helps folks get their second passport, helps them go where they're treated best, those are our 5 magic words. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. We've got a lot of good free resources there about second passports, as well as here on our channel. Now, when it comes to second citizenship, I always encourage people to ask themselves, what is the return on investment? Whether you're actively trying to use your second passport to do something like expatriate, make new investments, or travel to places for business, or it's just what I call citizenship insurance. You have to ask yourself, what am I getting out of this? How am I protecting myself? How am I growing my wealth by having a second passport? And so I'm not opposed to donation options. I think sometimes those are some of the cleanest and easiest options. But if you have money to invest, but you've been, saying, I don't want to go and invest money in real estate, who knows what happens to the market, I feel like I'll overpay, it seems like a hassle. I'm going to go through some citizenship and residence programs that you can put your money into, and you don't have to deal with the hassles of things like maintaining property or hoping that some startup doesn't collapse, okay? Now, obviously, nothing is risk-free. Banks can fail. Government bonds can go unpaid. There's nothing that's risk-free, but these are some options that are a bit more hands-off while allowing you to actually keep the investment that you made on your balance sheet and not just write it off as a donation. So the first option is St. Lucia. This is a citizenship by investment program, and they do have a donation option that is one of the least expensive options out there. However, what they also have is a government bond option where you can put about $500,000 into government bonds. There's no interest. And you can hold those bonds for a number of years, and then at the end of the number of years, you can liquidate the bonds. This is rather typical of citizenship by investment programs where you have to hold the investment for a certain number of years. And so certainly there's an opportunity cost on this, and if you compare the $500,000 bond investment to the $100,000 donation, over the course of, let's say, 5 years, you might see that the opportunity cost on the remaining $400,000 delta is greater than just giving them the $100,000. But if you want to keep the money on your balance sheet, you can certainly do that. I am a St. Lucian citizen. I like the program, and I voted with my feet. So if you don't want to make the donation, that is an alternative. The second one is in Turkey. Turkey has a citizenship by investment program, which has become very, very popular. And so Turkey started out at a $1 million real estate investment. They dramatically lowered that a while back to $250,000 in real estate. We have someone on my team who's a Turkish speaker. We find good deals. We find incredible deals, actually, the best deals. And I think that can work very well. However, obviously, if you just go and look at a lot of these Turkish real estate websites, there's a lot of bad inventory for sale, so you really need to know what you're doing. The alternative to real estate, though, is it's always been double the amount of money in the bank that you keep in real estate. So back when it was $1 million, I think it was $2 million in the bank. It might have even been $3 million. Now that it's $250, you can choose, instead of real estate, to put $500,000 in the bank. And technically, you should be able to split that up into different banks, okay? So Turkey doesn't have huge levels of deposit insurance, but they do have some pretty big banks. And so if you wanted to pick a couple of banks and put your money in there, you can hold dollars. And so you don't have to get into the Turkish lira to do that. You have to hold the money for 3 years. So if you're someone who's liquid, we've had a couple folks come to us recently who they say, hey, Andrew, I got $5 million in the bank, or one guy had, $10 or $11 million in the bank. And so if you already have liquidity, this is a way to diversify. Turkey may have been number one on your list of places to diversify, but you can get a passport out of the deal, and you just have to keep your money in the bank. So that's a place where you don't have to get into the real estate game. Now for number 3, and we're getting a little bit out there, but Egypt actually has created, let's call it a citizenship by investment program. They, like Turkey, have kind of refined it. It hasn't really been widely publicized, hasn't even really been finalized in some ways, and so some of the rules we're still seeing come out. But if you deposit 7 million Egyptian pounds in a bank and you keep that money there for a while, you can eventually get Egyptian citizenship. It's a little bit less than $500,000, about $450,000. Certainly a currency like that is going to fluctuate a bit, although throughout 2019 and into early 2020, it actually appreciated against the US dollar after getting beaten up very badly against the US dollar when they unpegged it a couple years ago. So if you have an extra 400 and some thousand US dollars sitting around and you want to put it in an Egyptian bank, I guess the plus side is interest rates there are pretty high, and you can become an Egyptian citizen. Not sure what the great utility is of that for most people. I do love Egypt and love Egyptians. Not sure I would want that passport at that price point, but it is an option. Number 4 is similar, and this is Jordan. Jordan has a citizenship by investment program that, again, no one really talks about because they haven't had that many people, but they have had some, amazingly, who have put $1.5 million US dollars either into government securities or government bonds or securities or into a bank account. Okay? And if you, again, hold that for a couple of years, you can go and you can become a Jordanian citizen. Also probably not that intriguing to many folks, but if you have $1.5 million and you've been hankering to buy some Jordanian debt, then you can do that. Another option is in Latvia, which is one of the lesser discussed residence by investment or so-called golden visa programs in Europe. Now, unlike some of the other golden visa programs, if you want to become a Latvian citizen, you actually need to live in Latvia, and that could mean tax consequences. So if you're running the 7 or 8 figure business that we often talk about, it may not be worth it. It's a situation where you probably would be better off going somewhere else unless you just happen to like living in Latvia. But Latvia has a deal where you put 280,000 euros in basically subordinate debt with a bank. So it's not quite a bank deposit. So you're one rung lower. But by doing that, you don't have to buy property. You don't have to start a business. You just put your money with the bank, and basically you get a residence permit that you can renew. If you live there for 10 years, you can become a citizen. And so that's one way. Unlike some of the other programs in Europe, which are really pushing real estate, some of them are starting to push startup investments, which can be good for some, but obviously there's some risk in terms of volatility there. Obviously, some kind of debt with a bank could also have risk, but it's a lot more hands-off and probably less volatile than investing in startups. Okay. Now, there are residence investments programs around the world that don't necessarily lead to citizenship, where you also can just put money in the bank. So Malaysia's My Second Home program, the MM2H program, you put between 150 and 300,000 ringgit in the bank in Malaysia. If you can get in at a time when the ringgit has been beaten up against some of the big international currencies, you can get a deal. They pay you a couple percentage interest points. And other than the currency risk, your money is just sitting there in the bank. They've got some really good banks in Malaysia. They have international banks. And so you can do that. You can live in Malaysia. You're not going to become a citizen, but you can live there. Thailand has a program. Plenty of other countries have a program, Panama, for example. So lots of residence countries that may not necessarily lead to citizenship have programs where you put your money in the bank, and that is all that is required. So those are some programs for not only residents, but also some for immediate citizenship. As you can see, not as many options. My approach to this is, if you buy real estate correctly, now, in St. Lucia and the Dominicas and the St. Kitts and Nevises of the world, where they sell the approved, government-approved real estate, you're not really going to come out very well on most of those deals most of the time, okay? Nor are you even necessarily going to get to enjoy the property. So in the Caribbean islands for citizenship by investment, I generally pass, as Rick Dees once said, pass on the real estate options. However, there are other countries, fast-track options. There are golden visa options that lead to citizenship. There are citizenship by investment options where you can buy real estate. And so, what we do is we are constantly studying lots of markets. We have local agents who know the real scoop, and we get to know them, and we test these people out. And, if you know what you're doing, you won't overpay by 20 or 30 or 40% the way that some of these agents hope that citizenship investors do. So rather than avoiding real estate investments, I would suggest just finding someone who knows what they're doing and working with them and getting your passport that way. I also say donations aren't that bad if you've got a good ROI. If you just don't want to deal with the hassle, you don't want to deal with the the running around or the thinking about holding assets, or it's just worth paying the money either as an insurance policy or because it's going to help your financial position in some way. Sometimes donations can be a good deal too. So those are some countries to consider. However, I probably wouldn't go so far as to prioritize this approach over the traditional real estate or donation approaches. I just think what you need to focus on is ROI and making sure that you're buying the right properties if you choose to go that direction. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.